That's wrong. Okay. That was so weird. That was so weird. It's always weird to start a live video when you're the only person initially, and so you're talking to yourself. But you have to talk because, hey, Sonia, you have to talk because it's going to be replayed later. And when it gets replayed later, you don't want it to just be this awkward thing, hey, sis, where people are looking at dead air. All right. I'm so excited about guests and the word that they have to share. Hello.
Hey.
I'm really hyped about this conversation for a lot of reasons. But ideally, I'll start off with, this is your first time at, the Anti-Blackness Reader Project platform. I feel like...
It over. I'm honored.
You're on it. I
feel like
way back in the day from MTV Raps. Like, this is your first time on air, girl. Like, what? What? First of many dope ass conversations. Brittany. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you, and then I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and we're going to jump into it. So, for the people who are watching this, who will watch this later or watching now, whatever, I first found out about your work over on the LinkedIn's. So let's just start there. All right. I'm over on the LinkedIn's.
On the LinkedIn's. I like that.
On the LinkedIn's, where all your racist, anti-Black, homophobic uncles, because they wilding right now on my LinkedIn.
Don't they? I don't know them. Look,
Okay, well, not your uncle. I'm sorry, not your uncle.
Don't put that on my lineage. Don't put that on my lineage.
You know what? I love Black folks. I love us. It's like, wait a second, that don't, like, not me.
We're supposed to be like, I was talking to your girl. I was talking to your boy. You're like, there's like an undertone, like there's something.
Like we'd be like, you a part of this. Just like y'all president. Like.
Oh.
Get your mans in them. Get your mans. So over the LinkedIn, not Brittany's uncles,
no, not my LinkedIn,
but where people just do food. But I don't even know how you landed on my page, but like the very first post or whatever, I was like, oh, all right, I see you. It was one of those things where it's like, here's the person who's on this particular platform who really seems like Black for real.
I remember now. It was the calling into love and accountability, Black leaders, Black founders and creators, to interrogate how we could absolutely perpetuate internalized colonialism, capital, all the things, and how we show up. So that was it. That was our entry point into each other.
That was the entry point. Then the next thing you know, in the mailbox, I'm getting a box of your liberated love notes. It was a surprise gift from a mutual friend. Shout out Dr. Janice. And I was like, what is this gift? What is this gift? All right. I mean, sometimes shame to show it. I mean, the box is still holding up really well, but I done traveled with these cards. They go from desk to the bathroom to the closet. So then I was like, wow. Whoever made these liberated love notes, product placement. I was like, okay, she really with the shits. All right, okay. And did I slide into your DMs? I don't know, but I was just like, thank you for this gift,
Yeah.
And it just went from there. It was an instantaneous connection. And so I know you as being someone who is invested in liberation, particularly also Black liberation, Black joy, Black rest, Black ease. We are sistering in this DEI industry complex, whatever we want to call this shit. And so
that was a whole thing too. Look,
listen. And so from that place, I could just say it was an instant connection.
Mm-hmm.
So, how would you want to introduce yourself to the people?
To the people. I appreciate that. I appreciate the love. I appreciate the space. I appreciate you having me over. Um, I appreciate how divine, in the spirit of divinity, I feel like our coming into each other has been. Who am I? And I love that question because I feel like how I have responded to that question has absolutely evolved over the years. And a lot of it has to do with the just intrapersonal work, intrapersonal reckoning, unlearning work that I am just invested in for myself. And so I feel like I used to always lead with like, what I do. I've been like hella intentional, Kina, about not leading with that in this season,
Yep.
as I am unlearn, how internalized capitalism shows up in me. And so I am Brittany Janay, heavy on the 3 syllables. My mother,
Heavy on the 3
heavy on the
syllables.
3
Watch
syllables.
it.
My mother was on a Zoom event, I think actually when I launched Liberated Love Notes. And so it was a mix between professional and personal. And she was like, why people calling you Brittany? I ain't call you Brittany. Why are you letting people call you Brittany? I name you Brittany. And it made me think about the words of Lucille Clifton, where she shares something to the effect of, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. And so I've been honoring my mother. I am honoring Loretta and myself by owning my name. I am something like a perpetual wonderer. And so I feel like in this season, I have so many more questions than I do answers. I am a lover of Black people. I am forever learner and unlearner. I am Black woman, Black mother, Black partner to Black man. I am from, and if I scoot over, like right over this shoulder, is a picture of my 4 grandparents who, up until this year, I have been blessed to do life with all 4 of my grandparents, my elders. And so I am from, first and foremost, Corey and Loretta's teenage love. And that's significant because that's where I learned like this love thing from. I bear witness to it and it shows up in me. And that just feels like a blessing and an inheritance. I am from Lucille's brilliance and creativity, but then also like her sharp tongue. And so I feel that in me too. I am from Lula B's healthy skepticism,
Wow.
shade, because sometimes that is very appropriate and
It's
necessary.
necessary.
I am from, right? Um, I am from Lewis's. That's one of my newly inherited ancestors, y'all. I'm from Lewis's courage and truths and stories untold. And I am from Elmer. I'm from Elmer, Elmer's big faith. And that resonates with me in this season as I am in a season of transition and like really leaning into like faith as an embodied practice. It also resonates with me because it's also significant to this conversation because a lot of my coming into my own divinity was aligned with the transition of my elder ancestors. So
Yeah.
I am also creator of Liberated Love Notes, which started out as me speaking life and love into my damn self, just as a Black woman, equity and inclusion, justice practitioner. But then also speaking love and life into my partner, who at the time was a Black man in policing. And so just like that's a whole vibe. Like, what does it mean to exist in a context of systems who perpetually cause harm to your community, right? And then also create some healthy distance between who you are and like what you do in service of stuff. So Liberated Love Notes was deeply personal, and then evolved into like this gift, critical self-reflections and affirmations for the culture, intentionally so. Like I remember people saying like, you know, is it just for Black people? And I'm like, yeah, it is.
Wait, this ain't for nobody else.
This is just for Black people, and I really, really love it. White people can buy them, and non-Black people can so that I can distribute them for free, because that is always the goal. Shout out to my good friend Harris, who, when I shared that vision with him, he was like, Grace economics. He was like, it's giving Grace, economics. And so, yes, they can engage in that way, but Liberated Love Notes is absolutely my gift to the culture. And so that's who I am. That's who I am from. That's how I'm showing up. And it's given, yeah.
I mean, you already, if we don't do nothing else, you done already got some people delivered tonight.
I'm trying to figure out how to scroll this joint. Like, I'm like,
you're trying.
okay, there we go. I see now. I get it. Okay, cool. I see.
You get it. So every time you and I talk, I learn something. Like, literally every time we talk, I pick up more wisdom. And you're gonna have me what do you call it? Updating my bio.
I love that for us.
Right?
Us. Yeah.
About a year ago, when people started asking me, like, introduce yourself or whatever, I was like, I'm going to insert the relational first, right? So this is why my bio says I'm a sibling of 5 kids. I'm the nanny of 8 kids, right? Because who I love matters and shapes me more than any piece of paper a white institution gave me. You know what I'm saying? Then, when I was around magical Negroes, which is a whole conversation.
Those are the kind of conversations I like to have, though.
This is why we over here not at the DFW. I know I got the DFW's t-shirt on, but we specifically are having this conversation at the Anti-Blackness Reader Project, okay? So this is a for us, by us conversation. Anybody who isn't us can still join and be a part and learn, but you are a guest. So, but I was around magical Negroes who were always leading with doctor this and this and this. I'm like, first of all, we all magical Negroes. We are surviving anti-blackness every day.
We are being.
Like, we are all otherworldly. Okay. So then I was like, I'm an adult Brussels sprout eater. How about that? And I feel like that's phenomenal, because I learned how to appreciate something that I didn't like for a very long time. And then it's like, some people caught it, that it was like a reset, because y'all gonna have to stop identifying with the shit white people gave y'all.
Hello. So I know we're gonna talk about the affirmation, love no, I refusal is divine, but I remember, so I'm a journaler. I'm a journaler, and I remember affirming in my journal, like, I am not my work. Like, I am not my work, about 2 years ago. And after journaling around it, I actually remember, like, I actually wrote a post about it. Like, I actually wanted to roast, and I did like a social media, like, Instagram square about it. And my intent was really to, like, invite this level of, like, just like intrapersonal interrogation, reckoning on how we oftentimes put higher value or perpetuate with the ways in which, like, whiteness, like, has qualified value, so much so that we miss the very, like, for lack of a better term, just like simple, brilliant, aspects of ourselves, right? One of the things that I've been affirming, like, for myself, like, literally, like, writing down is, like, you know what? I am human. I am divine. I am worthy. I am enough. I am human. I am divine. I'm worthy. I am enough. And sometimes I'll affirm that even in introduction, in lieu of the credentials, because I think, or I know rather, the, like, default frame is that, I'm worthy of being in this space because I did this, this, and that. I'm worthy of being in this space because I've created this, this, and that. I'm worthy of being in this space because I got this alphabet soup behind my name or whatever. And I am reminding myself constantly, especially in this area, constantly, like, no, I am worthy, like, cause I'm human. I am divine because I'm literally like created in the image of, right? Like this just like really deeply, I think, not
There's
even,
breath in my body.
yes, there's breath in my body. And it was so deliberate. It's a deeply spiritual, remembering, right? I'm not, because it's there, right? It's a deeply spiritual remembering. And it is not by happenstance that the spaces that we occupy on a daily, specifically our workplaces, even some of the communities that we co-create together, our Black spaces, do not lift that up as the beauty it is. You know what I mean? I was with a group a couple weeks ago of Black professionals, but then also HBCU, so Black students. And we contended with the ways in which elitism and classism and even like nepotism like show up in our spaces. When I was at Howard, one of the things that, and I wish I knew then what I know now, one of the things that was hella problematic and probably still exists is the ways in which Howard students, we distance ourselves from like the locals, as if there's like, now we're creating hierarchies to Black that we deem worthy. So anyway, I say all that to say that it's not a matter of semantics. Like even when we, it's creative, yes, but it's also like a deliberate disruption. It's a very deliberate and intentional disruption in remembering that we're inviting, other Black folks to consider for ourselves.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it connects to our conversation, which is it's also a refusal. It's me saying that the shit that y'all taught me to validate myself, the false matrices that you all created, I no longer am going to have to hang my hat on that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, like, learning how to say, and I'm, like I said, I'm super hyped because I feel like I've been, like, on a journey of learning just that, to be like, no, I'll say no again. And even though I don't want us to talk too much about people who are not Black, what I am going to say is part of this refusal is being able to say, not only am I saying no, but also the demands that y'all are making, that I be approachable, that I be likable, that I be, I don't want to do that shit. And so like, it is so freeing to be like I literally had someone say, well, this is not really approachable for white men. Who said it had to be?
Where did this come from?
Like, what about me? That I gotta do some shit for you. And that the shit that I do needs to be something that you rock with. And so it's just so much liberation in being able to be like, yeah, it's no, it's a no for me, dog. What? So, go ahead, I'm listening.
So and I think about like even the juxtaposition of like refusal with divine. Like I reflected on that, right? Like just like the connotations that we associate with refusal. When I refuse, I may be perceived as selfish. When I refuse, I may be perceived as impractical. When I refuse, I may be perceived as disruptive. When I refuse, I may be perceived as like unloving. And yet like divine is like how high can you go from divine?
Yeah.
From divine. When I was I'm trying to remember, so the social context when I first wrote that down, because it's not new, like it's not like some, you know what I mean, like this is,
wait, pause, stop. I just want to take a second and say that we're having this conversation in a very specific context. Black August, when we celebrate Black resistance and the work that our ancestors like George Jackson and a whole bunch of other powerful Black kings did, upsetting the prison system and judicial system in California in the 1970s. And they paid deep costs. Some of them, their very lives. Some of them are still people who are imprisoned in this unjust prison system. So I just wanted to take a second and honor that this conversation grows from that. This is August. And one of the things I love about Black people is we will make anything our shit. So we like Black August. That's ours too.
Yeah.
So just like wanted to make that acknowledgement of the work. Part of the reason why you and I can have these conversations is because of people like George Jackson, who's like, I ain't doing it with y'all, you know? So I just wanted to make that really clear. And now you're going to tell us what refusal means to you, and how did you come up with refusal is divine?
So in just to play it some just like more historical homage, like I feel like August is also, correct me if I'm wrong, when the Nat Turner's rebellion, I want to say,
Nat Turner's rebellion, Marsha Ambrose, I think Stonewall might have happened
August
in August. Fred
the,
Hampton was Fred Hampton born in August? I don't know, but August is some hot shit. Yes. It really truly is. But you are right. Nat Turner's rebellion happened in August.
Yes, this is divine.
So if you are a Black person and listen to this, and you like, you know what, I gotta make some changes, do it in August. Do it right now.
Forget January. Forget February.
Do it now.
The energy that we have access to in this moment.
Listen, don't quiet quit.
Okay.
Leave loud.
Look,
you know I live by do it for your ancestors. Come on, because your ancestors couldn't. Some shit you gonna have to do. Do it for the ancestors.
Lighter, girl? Better light my white candle. Look, all the energy, all the energy. Fall fresh on me. Fall fresh on all of us. Those who are white.
For them ancestors. Don't go to work tomorrow.
Your refusal is divine.
But also, I feel like now we need that disclaimer. Like, if you cannot afford like gas taxes, that'll got you to do it. Like,
both hands.
I don't need nobody in my DMs like, I was listening to you and Brittany Janay last week, and I cussed my girls out, and now I'm trying to figure.
Refusal goes wrong. Right.
Yes, agreed though. Yes, Nakia by design. Feeling transformation all month. I try to tell people, if you're still enough to catch the wind, but you have to be still enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, like the wind, that breeze will just come through, and you be like, what? Wait, how? You know what I'm saying? So that's available to us. So thank you for sharing that. So yeah, August is a month for people to be setting boundaries. What you not gonna do, which is the energy I try to bring to every situation I'm in. Okay, so refusal.
So I want to say the social context at the time, because this was last year, was, so there was Naomi Osaka in the mainstream, and if y'all remember, there was a moment where she was like, you know what, no more nothing, no more media, no more nothing. I am prioritizing my well-being. And at same time, there was everything that was going on with Dr. Nicole Hannah-Jones in UNC. And remember, I think she was trying to get tenure. They took forever to give it to her. And then she was like, when they finally gave it to her, like, nah. But then there was also a Black woman chemist that they were courting at the same time, who got wind of all of this trauma that they were, and racism that they were perpetuating with Dr. Jones, and was like, y'all courting me? Nah. And so there was just like so many in the mainstream.
Before Naomi, you remember also Simone, when Simone was like, I ain't doing this with y'all.
Yes, there were just so many like mainstream like possibility models for refusal. And I'm going to be honest, like I was also in a season where I was needing to validate and affirm my own refusal, like what that looked like for me. And so I feel like I experience these like divine downloads. Like, I just don't think anything is by chance.
Yeah.
And so some way or another, the story of Igbo Landing, like popped up on my feed or something. And I just went down this like rabbit just whole of just like curiosity, because it was literally what my like soul like needed to remember like in the moment. And so for the folks who may not be familiar, Igbo Landing is the story of the 75. And so even 75, 12 is my number, divine. 75 West African captives who were taken across and through the Middle Passage. Their first stop was in Savannah, and they were to be sold to an enslaver in St. Simon's Island in Georgia. And so there was some sort of like transport from whatever like ship they were on to go through the Middle Passage to this like smaller, you know, ship to go to St. Simon's Island, Igbo Landing, as it's known today. But they actually capsized, so they rebelled. They rebelled. They ended up capsizing the ship, and it is told that they were like in community with like with their like chief, and so some sort of like spiritual elder was also present. And so it is told that they rebelled and then went into the water, like literally refused. I get it. I don't like the language. Like there's some accounts that will use the language of like mass suicide from my perspective, which suggests like death. But as the story is told, or as the narrative, our narrative is shared, it was this return. And so there's this account of them in their native language sharing, the water and spirits brought us here. The water and spirits will take us back. And in as much as they walked into the water, in the natural, like drowned, this was also like a reclamation of their like bodies and like an affirmation of like, this space will not have like my soul. Like this place will not have ownership over my soul, our body. Like we will return. And so, you know, folktale is that they didn't walk in, they actually flew, you know, back home. In the spiritual, and that's actually where like Toni Morrison gets the like Song of Solomon, like at the end of the book, like that's that imagery, right? And even if you ever y'all know that line in Black Panther right before he's like, I choose to see freedom with my ancestors than bondage here on this land. And so when I came across that passage and that like rich history, it was just a reminder to me how we are part of this like lineage of people, bodies that absolutely existed in the context of some like really jacked up and like trifling and dehumanizing systems, and yet there has always been this agency over our souls. There's this book. I actually was going to like hit you up and be like, can I read this passage? Because it came to me today.
You can always read whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like, so, and I be getting this. So there's this book that I was reading. So I feel like I was primed. You talked about stillness, right? I was primed for like,
so you can hear what the wind is trying to tell you, like how our ancestors download information to us. Yeah.
You talked about stillness. And so I feel like I have been gifted with meaning making, you know what I mean? And just like in that stillness, I don't think it was by happenstance that a few months prior to me remembering that history, I started to get a little bit more like curious around just African traditional forms of spirituality. I got a little bit more curious around spirituality beyond, you know, organized religion. I got a little bit more curious around, like, I understood what an ancestor was, but like, what does it mean to actually like revere, remember, and then like be open to like hearing from. In some ways, y'all, I do feel like, again, like spirit knew that I would be experiencing a lot of grief and loss in the physical realm. And so this was like all kinds of priming for like this year I'm in now. Yeah. But to also like remember that in a context where, you know, I was just trying to figure out, okay, you know, am I tripping? Like, is it okay that I don't want to refuse? You know, like I needed to be affirmed in my refusal, and that was it, right?
Yeah.
And so divinity had everything to do with this affirmation that yes, it's resistance, you know, yes, it is disruption, and there is a spiritual inheritance there that can't no system touch. You know what I mean? Like, it is untouchable, like literally untouchable. I know this for myself. You know, I feel this. There is this collective like divinity and like access that we have, but we have to like obviously like be intentional about carving out space where we can actually, you know, be still enough and like remember, because there's so much other shit out there that will have us forget. So anyway, like I feel like I'm, you know,
No,
that's
I can listen to you forever. But
yeah.
but not also so not only do you have to be still to catch it, not only do you have to carve out space to interpret to get some meaning, but you have to have capacity to hold it.
That's
Right?
real.
You
That's
have to have capacity
real.
to hold it.
That's
And
real.
all of those things are hard to do when you are I call it out of your body, right? But when you were discombobulated. You can't. You can't you get what I'm saying? Like you can't first of all, you gotta do 60,000 things, you gotta keep on moving. You can't process heavy shit, and you definitely can't sit with all of the different emotions, right? Like it is so easy for me to download shit now, Brittany. Like I'll just be sitting at the computer, da da da. Like I'll give you a perfect example. I was at the computer maybe like 3 months ago, and I was just sitting there, and I was like, hustle culture, grind culture, no days off. Wait, our ancestors couldn't take no days off. What? Bam! Like it hits me like so fast. Like it's just like, oh, okay. But at first,
So
it took
good.
so long to move through shit because I was so invested in the lies, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
Sonia Renee Taylor talks about white supremacy delusion, but to a certain extent, right? Like there was so much of the mirage that I believed in. So when I would get a new nugget, I would struggle with that thing. I'm like, but what about this? And then what about this?
Like, you know what I mean? Like believed and then also benefited from, because we, right? Like,
Yeah. But now it take like 10 minutes. I'm like, okay, same thing. You and I've been talking about this whole expertise thing. This year I stopped using the term. I refuse to use it. It's colonial as hell, right? But that took 20 minutes to work through.
I get all fresh on me. Yes.
But
Yes.
that's because I have more capacity to
Capacity.
hold.
That's so good. That is such a gem. Like, what does it mean to like even have the space? Because I'm mindful that, like, right, and I never want to suggest that everybody need to be where we at like right now in this moment, because that's just not.
I mean, we would love for y'all to be where we are at this moment so we can move this shit along. But okay. I
It'd be
mean,
great,
I would
and
like.
great and right. Great. And I got a
And
look, and I got a whole. I wrote a like that's a liberated love note about that. Like, what does it mean to like be mindful that as Black bodies we are experiencing our learning and unlearning in different places, and so as we learn, it is more of a gift and seeding rather than a like condemnation, and
yeah,
that's the whole love practice in and of itself. And I'm just also, that is why I am so focused. I feel so focused on like what does it mean to like create space and carve out space. Like when I think about like what I want to like, what do I want to spend my time doing, right? What do I want to, why am I experiencing such clarity around that, is because I want this for all of us, like space to process, space to consider, like space to contend with, you know what I mean? And you're right, I don't, 3 years ago I didn't have time. I felt like I didn't have time. In this season I feel like I am a better steward of my time and have literally had to free myself from spaces that were like blockage to my capacity,
Yeah.
right?
And I think it's important, Brittany. Is it okay if I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Because I also want to name the P word here, right? The privilege associated with some of this for me, right? When you, so 2 years ago when I was teaching several classes and had hundreds of students and had to respond to so many emails and all that stuff, again, I didn't have the capacity, right? For as much as I have now. I want to name that there are certain material things that I have access to that make it that much easier, right? I think that's really important because, to your point, we're not passing judgment or condemning. If you got 3 jobs and 2 kids, like, breathing is your act of resistance. That's what I'm doing.
Thanks.
Right? I'm parenting in a country. I cannot say this enough for Black people. No matter what kind of parent you are, Black parenting is revolutionary in a country that never intended for Black people to parent their children. And that was true 400 years ago.
That's so
and it's true today. It is true today. So I want to make space for that. That part of what life and does is it can eat up that, that time. I have more disposable time than a lot of people who look like us. And I want to always honor them by naming that.
That's real.
So I just wanted to really put that out there. I am aware of the privilege that I have access to process through things. And I think that's why it's so important for me to not waste that. And I'm definitely not wasting that arguing with old white pappies on the LinkedIns.
It's going on. It was literally like 5 minutes before. So 5 minutes before this, I was going on to the LinkedIns. You got me saying it. And I saw your post. It was like, somebody come get your uncles. And I was like, what's going on? It's hard to find it. I didn't have time to
Girl, I'll tell you later, but baby, some people's uncles is mad at me.
Not our uncles, but
not our uncles. Our uncles are not mad. See, this is part of refusal. I said, I'm not about to sit here and let y'all take this concept of quiet quitting and act like Black folks wasn't doing that during enslavement. That's basically what I said. I'm laughing, but it's not funny. I was just like, enslaved folks broke tools, did all kind of passive, subversive shit to slow the work down. Y'all are not about to sit here today and reconceptualize that shit. No, Black folks been quiet quitting. Y'all is not about to take that away from my ancestors.
Yeah, yet I struggle with the fact that quitting is even in the language. You know what I mean?
But none of us should be working.
I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. The way that it's actually defined, the way that folks are defining, they are defining quiet quitting based on my understanding. Because I actually I hit up, I think I saw Zach over Livermore. He had posted something this is capitalistic propaganda. And I'm like, can you help me understand what is quiet quitting? I don't feel like going through how to say it. It's honestly us enforcing our boundaries.
Yes.
Doing what we're paid to do. And it's
and nothing more.
Why is that quitting? Nah, this is me.
Why y'all mad?
Why you mad?
That people are I'm doing what's in the job description. That's it.
Isn't it? I refuse to do the utmost.
I refuse to do more.
I refuse.
You out here, y'all didn't reduce the workforce by 25%. Okay, so I'm already doing 5 people job up in this bug. And now that I decided that after 5, I ain't answered the emails.
It's the confusion. I'm just now you got workplaces really trying to figure out how to, best practices for the quiet quitting phenomenon. What? What?
That, believe it or not, that is refusal. It's saying,
And it's divine.
y'all ain't gonna get no
It is,
more out of me today.
it is my ancestors' wildest dream. I'm like, come on.
I can't, and to go back to what I said, I can't wait till people start loud leaving, because that's what needs to take place. All this shit is a scam. And I just need more of us to realize that all the time. You know, I've been going in and out the news today. I don't want to get too political, but the big news item is like Joe Biden is like forgiving, and I'm going to use the term loosely, forgiving student loan debt. And, you know, I guess we're all supposed to be like slow cash and like, thanks, Joe. First of all, I shouldn't even have no debt because, all right, and this is kind of off topic, but I'm going to bring us back in. But I do think we need to think heavily about this stuff. In the United States, so I'm talking from a U.S. context, part of what's happening, first of all, Black people have always been sold a bill of goods, and we always have wisdom keepers in a community who are like, nah, that is not what that is, right? But a lot of us co-sign, right? So what happens in the 80s when affirmative action policies are created that largely benefit white women, facts, I'm not making that shit up, we decide that we need to be a part of that, like that movement of respectability. So we all need to get degrees and all that kind of stuff. Then you utilize people like Bill Cosby to further sell that narrative, right? So now we all are here like, yes, this is it, this is it. So y'all bamboozled us to get all this debt in the first damn place in a country where we shouldn't have had to pay for that shit in the first place, because I'm still waiting. Where are the coins? Where are the coins? Did you get a reparations check and I didn't hear about it?
So that's the whole thing. So I was tracking the dialogue, like even the in-community dialogue, like, because we ain't talking about that. Like there is so much within community. You know, there's a narrative of we ain't great. You know, this whole like we need to take what we can get, or it's better than nothing. Like I actually saw that come across my feed today. Like y'all,
because people are complaining about just the 10 G's, right?
Which is which, and I love that you keep bringing in context, right? Because it is very on brand in the United States of America, or really European dominant culture more broadly, to decontextualize. Like stay on the surface. Like it is very like if there is no context, it's probably white supremacist. Like if there is no history.
Wait, I need you to go back. Say like, all that one more time. If there is no context,
if it is decontextualized, it's like 99.9999%.
It's gimmicky white supremacy though. It's gimmicky whiteness though.
You cannot, right? We can't hoorah $10,000 when we know that there's a significant disparity between Black people, well, Black women, more specifically, is how we are impacted by student loan debt. We cannot hoorah when we know that we are indebted because reparations still have not been. So decontextualize.
We cannot hoorah when generations of white people sent their kids to college because of the home equity they had access to because of the GI Bill that Black families, Black military families could not access.
The context is context is there's this thing I wrote down in my journal last year, and oh my gosh, about context, and like she talked about how as Black folks, remembering is core to our survival, or you'll be lost as fuck. Like she said that. I can't remember who it was. Like remembering, and that very practically for me is always an invitation to contextualize, to understand the context before I jump.
And so here's the thing that brings us to another question I had, and I think that's a great connecting. Why do so many of us refuse to refuse? Look at that trip that Andre. Why are we refusing to refuse?
So I think the two R words come up, right? For me, and that's why that's risk and reward. And so we refuse to refuse because there are absolutely risks associated with it, right? Whether it is your livelihood, whether it is your ability to progress, right? And that goes back to reward. We are actually rewarded in the context of white supremacist systems when we don't refuse. We're actually rewarded when we create businesses that also perpetuate the same exploitative the same exploitative practices that we've learned from corporate America and as people existing in the cap, like we actually are rewarded by that. And so, I when I think about risk, the thing that comes up for me is like clarity. Clarity around, and I feel like many of our ancestors experienced this, like sort of like clarity around like what success and like what value and what like even luxury, like that's going around, like we absolutely enjoy like luxury, we absolutely deserve luxurious lives, and there's such an expansive way of thinking about what that feels like to each of us, and if it's limited to
the shit white people have,
yes, if that's limited to the self, that's another thing too. A lot of times we refuse because we forget that we are a collective peoples. And so anytime I gotta find the passage in this book. This is not.
Okay, you find a passage, and while you're looking for the passage, I want to answer the question too, because I have thoughts that go back to what you were saying about contextualizing.
Mm-hmm.
So I've said this publicly before, that at one point, which is so ironic, I get it. And if anyone wants to like make mad jokes about it, I understand. I was not supportive of reparations for the descendants of enslaved folks. I just wasn't. I know, shocker. Okay, and part of it was look your girl was in the second place. Okay, like you don't spend 2 decades.
You?
Huh?
When you say your girl, you talking about you?
Yeah, me. I was in second place. Me.
You are. I love this. Let's bear witness, y'all.
Yeah, I was in second place. You don't get through a career nearly 2 decades in higher education and not be sunken, right? And my whole premise, and it was such a false one, was, well, that was, I mean, thinking about it now, I'm like, but I was like, it was so long ago, and like, whatever. And the thing that changed my mind, all right, this is before I started my healing journey to divest from whiteness and to reckon with my own internalized anti-Blackness. The thing that really changed my mind was the economics of it all. The more I learned our history, like, for example, I can't say this enough. When the white people stormed the Capitol last year, this is the people's house. I don't know about the people, but I could tell you who built it for free twice. So I argue that was not only was that an anti-democratic moment, but it was an anti-Black moment, because we built this shit for free, not once but twice. And so it was me learning that history. I was like, well, shit. Like, enslavement of African peoples literally was the raw capital. It was the startup funds for this global enterprise. It had nothing to do with the morality of it at that point. Now I could tell you, I stay ready with 11 reasons why somebody need to run me a check. But at that point, it was just knowing that history, because I didn't know it before. The sweat equity alone in the right house. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so part of why I think people refuse, because you said something earlier, and hopefully you found your quote, is that the remembering is hard. The remembering is triggering. The remembering is stories of trauma. But also in that trauma is so much more. So I think that's part of the disconnection. People are refusing. People are literally saying, "Oh, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be the only Black person who works in this department." With that shit is not accidental. Forget what your talent acquisition manager told you. If you are the only Black or brown person in your department, I don't care where you work. I don't care what industry you are in. That shit is not an accident. It is not an accident. If no one looks like you in your department, it is not an accident. You ought to be asking questions. And so part of why we don't refuse is because we don't know the history. It's so traumatic. And then on one hand, we feel like because we don't know that history, we feel like people are giving us shit, like they're gifting us, but really this is what you owe me.
Yes, this is what we deserve. This is what we are owed. One of the things that I think is worth overstating is how part of our unlearning has to be around just like this cultural pattern of individualism.
Yeah.
That I need to get ahead, that I need to be the one, because it absolutely disconnects us from the just like our like collective why, which is hella communal, like deeply like part of who we are. There's a passage in this book, part of my remembering, like we're getting to the practical, and I love that you even shared like you're coming into. There's a whole passage there's a whole chapter dedicated in this book that has gifted me with so much about myself. One of my refusals during the Great Racial Reckoning of 2020 was reading books that prioritize Black trauma, Black pain, Black oppression. And so I was really intentional about identifying Black thought leadership that spoke to what is primary, like you shared, our gift, our wisdom, bodies of work that are like centuries and centuries old that have been deliberately like hidden from us. And stolen, right, from us. And one of those bodies of work is spirituality and the Black helping tradition. Shout out to our elder, Dr. Joanne Martin, who is here in Baltimore. Also, her husband, Dr. Elmer Martin, who's an ancestor now, they created and are the founders of the Great Blacks in Wax Museum. They are also the stewards of this body of work that initiated as a disruption of the ways in which like the social work industry, a helping profession pathologized Blackness. And so their invitation was like, actually, y'all got us all wrong. There's all this like wisdom in our lineage from the continent through the Middle Passage, through enslavement, through Reconstruction, where we have been doing the damn thing and helping ourselves.
And even prior to the Middle Passage.
Right, prior to, the continent, I mean. So it's like, so anyway, there is this body of work where they chronicle all the ways in which we have shown up as helpers for ourselves in moving forward our collective struggle. They make a really good connection to and case for why spirituality and our divinity is critical to us being whole, especially as we exist in harmful like systems. There's this concept in African traditional religion, spirituality around the destinal self, the destinal which keeps us like oriented and grounded. I'm going to read this passage because I think it gets at how, refusing to refuse, and as much as we may benefit temporarily, it also causes damage to our soul. And so the passage here, I got my little light. The passage here reads, the role of the destinal self was to orient the other selves around a person's life mission for purpose of creating community. This meant the destinal self, which we all have access to, y'all, was not an individualistic self pursuing the individual's interests above the community's interests, but a communal self that sought to make the individual's interests and the community's interests one. Traditional African helpers believed that people were born with a spiritual mission or purpose. Even if they were uncertain about what their life's mission was, they knew that it had something to do with group survival, group identity, group solidarity, harmonious social relationships, mutuality, and reciprocity, because these were all values that the ancestors and the gods had extolled, and that all Africans must have embedded in their personality if they were to be sane, happy, healthy, and whole.
Well.
Right. And so when you think
of, need to get that book,
baby
I
girl,
list.
When I tell you, it gives me framework to check myself before I wreck myself, right? It gives me framework when I talk about, so like clarity, like as I move, and certainly as someone who has as a Black body who has inherited a certain degree of privilege, be more responsible about. Because if this is a me thing, I'm probably out of alignment. You know what I mean? If this is solely a me thing, if this is not actively disrupting anti-Blackness, if this is not disrupting, or I'm not even going to come at it from a deficit perspective. If this is not amplifying like Blackness and its fullness and its wholeness, if this is not bringing to center like Black experiences that are oftentimes undermined, not seen as worthy or enough, then I might be out of, you know what I mean? I might be out of alignment, you know? And so I feel like the more I remember, the more I'm able to apply that in very practical ways to just how I move.
Yeah, I'm typing the name of the book, right? It's Spiritual Tradition African Helping. Brittany, are you still
spirituality. There? My grandmother called. Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay. I can.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you. Spirituality.
Sorry, my grandmother called me.
I can hear you.
Oh, my bad. Spirituality in the Black helping tradition and social work. Yeah, the Martins. She's like, I can hear you. I'm like, look, I'm over here trying to hit ignore, and I'm like, dang, I feel bad ignoring my grandmother. She probably.
Well, we're wrapping up, Grant.
Yeah.
I wanted to add, and I'm trying to type the name of this book, Spirituality in the Black Helping Tradition. Okay, so I was thinking I had a book part to read too. When I was thinking about our talk tonight, I was thinking, who are my favorite refusers? Who are some of my favorite refusers, ancestral refusers?
Ooh, and that's a good one.
Right? Okay. So one of them is, speaking of George Washington, part of me does want to know what triggered all the white people on the LinkedIn tonight. But I don't know if it's because I talked about the first president or not. But Ona Judge, the woman who was enslaved by initially George Washington's wife, and then later on by George Washington, who refused to be his slave. And he spent his life stalking her.
I don't know that. Yeah.
This up, y'all. The book is called Never Caught by Erica Armstrong Dunbar. But one Black woman who refused enslavement, ran away to different places at different times. George Washington, the man on y'all's dollars, literally would hire private investigators. He stayed up at night losing sleep to find this woman. So her story is powerful. And basically at a time where, because enslavement was very active in her lifetime, but she was like, no, it's like, anyway, Ona Judge is one on my refusal list. And the second person is Ida B. Wells. And I don't think people talk enough about a Black woman who was a journalist. All right. So let's just stop there. Who was reporting on lynchings of Black people when Black people were being actively lynched. I don't think there's enough reference for that. Because I can even see what that would look like if she had done it like 20 years after Jim Crow. You know what I'm saying? Like she was doing it in the midst of. And I wanted to read this part of the book. So the book is called To Tell the Truth Freely by Mia Bay, The Life of Ida B. Wells. And I just wanted to read this. Most politically effective as an agitator rather than an established race leader, Wells remained an agitator all her life. In 1895, with her anti-lynching campaign still going on, Wells did not jockey to replace Douglass. The Douglass they're talking about is Frederick Douglass. Instead, she continued to focus on using her formidable skills as an orator and a journalist to combat lynching and work to build an anti-lynching coalition that depended on international rather than national leadership. So those are the two people that I wanted to bring up. She refused to be silent about something that she saw happening. She could have decided that the risk was too much. And she refused. I wanted to give you the last word of tonight.
Oh, like benediction. Look, I feel like I need to find
it. You get the benediction because I want you to call your grand.
It just we have a. I'm supposed to take her to an appointment tomorrow, and she knows that my mind is fleeting. And so I told her yesterday when she called me and asked me, I said, Graham, feel free to call me tonight. Like, feel free to call me tomorrow to remind me. And so that is exactly what she's doing. They said you got a voicemail.
Yeah.
Trying to so I was trying to think of like my some refusers. That's such a good question. One of the ones that comes to mind for me, and credit her as someone who is part of just like my intellectual lineage, ancestral board of directors.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you stop? I love how you be dropping like you just drop game changers and you're like, okay, now what we're gonna happen?
Wait, what was it? What like I'm over here multitasking. Look, trying to find the level of intel.
Ancestral board of directors.
So that was so let me give credit where credit is due. First of all, I was on a webinar. Told you y'all, sit at the feet of elders. Mama Coco.
From the documentary.
Yes. When I went out, my grandmother in our grandmother's garden, y'all remember? That was freaking life so divine. Like that. I'm just thinking about when I saw it, when my grandfather's transition. Like I'm just thinking about all of that now that it makes sense. How I was primed. Anyway, I started to again invest in just my own self, not to teach others, but just like invest in my own like nourishment. And that was a question she invited us to consider. Who is part of your ancestral board of directors? Drop that in there as a checklist. It is not my own. Like that was something that she invited us to consider. Mama Coco, like, and I was like, you know what? Hell yeah. Because we talk a lot about like professional board of directors. We talk a lot about like personal board of directors, but like who, when you have capacity and space to be still, who are you leaning into? Like, how are we?
I'm listening to you, and it's like when like there's an impact, and it's like sound waves, that's what's happening, because there are certain voices that, first of all, I tell people Malcolm X is my patron, like ancestor, right? And there are certain people that I keep coming back to, and now I'm like, shit, because that's my board. So, like, for example, Ida B. Wells, Malcolm X, you know what I'm saying? Like, Cedric Robinson. Like, there are these people, like, I'm always, like, I call them my bathroom books because they're the books that end up from the desk to the bathroom, right? And I'm like, shit, all this time I had a board, and I didn't even know.
But you knew, but you didn't like.
It's just like, I just know that I lean so, like, I F with them so heavy, you know? And then
there's an investment in you, and how, like, to know that, like, to also know that. The reason why it resonated with me is because it feels so intentional, mutually. you know, it feels so mutually, I am in my own way, in community with these people. They hold me accountable. Like, I'm like, none of this is new.
Even Audre Lorde, I feel like I told you this. I be
Because
dead ass like, I be like, Audre, I'm sorry, I gotta use like 3/4 of the master's tools today. I be like dead ass be like, sorry, Audre, I'm so sorry. I gotta use this thing, but I'm gonna not use it all. You know, so it's like, wow.
So, and I think so. I was gonna reference Toni Morrison. Talk about documentaries, and so the pieces of me or the parts of me was also again like a game changer for me. I love it when she shares that anecdote that I feel like a lot of us can relate to. She references the like little white man that was on her shoulder, like invisible
The
white man.
white gaze.
Yeah, yeah, right. That we're just walking around with the heaviness of it. And she talks about how freeing it was the day that she plucked them off. And so, like, I was like, when I heard her share that, like, I literally felt like she was in my living room. I felt like she was legit in my living room, and it was yet another possibility model for like refusal. I am going to be in my practice in my own way.
I'm gonna stop you for a second because I think we have an opportunity to get somebody healed tonight. I'm being serious. Like, if you don't have access to this, get you some. Because some of us are spending too much time listening to the legacy of their hatred, the legacy of their delusion. And again, that's why you can't be silent. That's why you don't have a rhythm. That's why you can't stay in your body. That's why you can't hold shit. Because you are literally, you got a board of directors, but it don't look nothing like you.
You got a board of directors. Wrong ancestors. They're not even yours. They have no stake in life. They have no stake in your freedom. They don't even know you.
And
they don't know nothing about you.
Yeah, and then also, there might be white people who listen to this. There are white people who follow this page. This is also why it's so important for white people to figure out what was your shit before you were white, because white is made up.
Who's on your Instagram directors? Because it's some
right. So even for them, there's a jewel there.
Hello. Talk about a bit. Hello.
We out here like. Not Jeff Bezos and them. They can't be on the board.
They cannot be on your board.
They can't be on the board.
They can't be on your
And then I'm going to take it back. I'm going to take it a step further. Like, any person who is not speaking life and humanity into you cannot be in consideration for how you make decisions. Why are you letting people who don't believe you are human dictate how you make choices? So that includes, what's the book? Stormy Orman.
Look, put them down. Put them books down. Put them down.
Renee Brown. What's the one? How the rat eat the cheese?
No lie. So real anecdote here. I remember, and I'm like, if I share this, I feel like you're gonna get kind of shady. But no lie. In the spirit of book, you brought it up. Whatever. It's unscripted, y'all. We had no.
Go ahead.
I remember in the spirit of the reframing, like who is on your, not just your ancestral board of directors, but your library. Like if we want to just take it baby steps, you know what I mean? Like your library and thought leadership. I remember when I was working with the team, and we decided to do they wanted to do like an internal book club. And they chose, and this is why I think white fragility. And so I was like, I tried to give it a try. I did, but I couldn't.
You tried to give it a college try.
I tried to give it a try. No, on a flight, because this was pre-COVID. I was on a flight. I had the things in, the audio book in, And I woke up, y'all, and my spirit was so uneasy. Like I had like a physiological impact. Like I think I fell asleep when it was on a chapter on like subversive racism or something. And I was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like I woke up uneasy. And so I was getting in my body and was like, yeah, I don't think I can read this no more. And so I told them, I was like, yeah, I'm actually going to read as an alternative. At the time, Austin Channing Brown had just released her book.
But I need a second, because in my mind, I think I know where am I right in assessing who was like, read the book?
Yeah. So, so I was like, actually, I'm Still Here. It was called I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in the World Made for Whiteness by Austin Channing Brown. Those books came out at the same time, but everybody was on that white fragility train. Or white, the train.
So it cannot be stated enough. All right? I don't care how many times I say this shit out loud. First of all, I call her Robin DeFangelo because she's a human being. So there's that. Maybe in 2021 or 2020, Robin and Austin are invited to the same speaking engagement at a university in the Midwest. Robin gets paid more than than Austin. And I say that a lot because in the work that we do, the matrix sees that we're qualified why Robin deserve more money than Austin. That's some bullshit. But I can't help to want to make a very clear dot here that for every person, and now we're talking about racial justice in this particular context, white people can publish, give 1,000 speeches that make people feel comfortable and happy and all the extra shit that happens. But that's because they're tourists. Right?
We need to know this too.
We need to know this.
That we got here. We need to know this too.
Because people like us are co-signing the tourists all the time. So, yeah, we need to have these conversations. And going back to what you said about that ancestral board, that is so important. Because who are you listening to? Whose wisdom are you leaning into when you are making decisions about life, self, values, parenting, partnership, all of this stuff? It is not real. And one of the things I've tasked myself with as I'm on my own healing journey is a lot of this remembering is so important. There are things that our grandparents, our great-grandparents, all of those things where for whatever reasons, multiple reasons, we've said we've outgrown that or that's not important. And I feel like I'm going back now and being like, where is the wisdom in that, right? And to the extent that we can say, okay, so let me figure out what part of this was trauma informed, because there's the reality of intergenerational trauma, but then what's the part that actually is worth holding on to, right? And so I do feel like we're having to reclaim some things that were stolen, that were minimized, that were damn near actually lost. And that ancestral board of directors will cement you in your commitment to do that. But I mean, you, like I said, I just, every time we talk, I get so much from you. And that right there, for me, I don't know about anybody else, but that right there, that's a game changer. And it makes me more committed to leaning into that. Because you and I both are stewarding founders of our own companies. And it is so easy to choose the violence of supremacy culture, to choose the violence of whiteness. And I ain't talking to white people, I'm talking to us, right? It's the easy choice. The hardest thing is to go into that ancestral board of directors. It's going back into the community. It's calling up a sis and being like, hey, what are your thoughts? How am I interpreting this? Going back to that communal knowledge base. Because if we keep relying on the lies of their violent systems, we will never see the liberation that we desire and deserve. We just won't. So thank you for reminding me of how much more significance I need to place on my board.
So it's so I know we've been talking about like refusal, but another R word that comes up for me, and this is a question that another Black woman asked me maybe like a year and a half ago over lunch. We were meeting up for lunch here in Baltimore, still in the context of this pre-season of transition, and she shared Brittany, or asked Brittany, what is your relationship to this place? Like where you are, like she said, what is your relationship to this place? And I thought that was such a compelling question because, so I shared earlier that I am from Corey and Loretta's teenage love, and I am from their relentless effort to like make it out. That's important context for, that's like a knowing for me to like be mindful, you know? And so my response to her question, when she said, what is my relationship to this place, was one word, and it was return. Like that is what came to me, like return. And so in as much as we've invited folks to consider like what refusal looks like for them in the smallest or, you know, drastic of ways, I am also wondering like, what is return? You know what I mean? Like, what does return like look like, feel like, you know, for us?
Girl,
Significant. That is significant. The axe forgets, the tree remembers. And we rooted, right? So yeah, return.
y'all heard the word. Y'all got the decree.
Return.
Y'all got the decree. I mean, thanks for dropping this hot 16 on a Wednesday night. A word on a Wednesday. A word on a Wednesday.
It's giving Bible study, because you know Bible study is usually on Wednesday.
I did this on purpose. Listen.
Definitely giving Bible study. It's definitely
Look, on my journey,
church. It's definitely
on my journey to divorce myself from white Thor God that people made up. I still need a word on a Wednesday. You know, I'm a Bible study girl. And so that is very much part of what this is. And you share some things that will get people delivered with a T. I put a T at the end because some people get delivered and then fall back into it. So I just think you gave so much. And like I said, we had this conversation here because centering Black story, Black truth-telling, Black wisdom, the scope of our knowledge is important in a globally anti-Black world, in a world where we have to return, in a world that we have to refuse, in a world that we have to say that it's Jay, in a world where we have to say that my life needs to be affirmed in every space, every place, everywhere I go. And I feel like we have to wrap this up, you know, like there's so much here.
I know.
You have to wrap it up, but it's just like, it's like in church when they play the like, the people start shouting again.
When
and
they
then
like, I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna sit down. Like I feel like we're like I'm about to sit down, but we know that when they say that, they're not really about to sit down.
They're not done. It's not done until somebody's wig be on the ground. You know, so I feel like you preach so good.
I was trying to have a nice benediction card, like legit.
You have a benediction card in the stack?
I mean, all of, you know, I should, you know.
I ain't get to the benediction card yet.
It's not, well, no, I'm just calling it that, like a nice benediction. all of these are it is well cards. You know what I mean? All of these are it shall be cards.
Well, you go ahead and give us the benediction, sis.
Okay. Hold on. I am gonna go with.
Don't make me get out my stack and read.
No.
But you know how they say, open up. We coming from.
So we come from the card in the deck to stack.
Girl, now listen now. You might go ahead and make this a book. I'm manifesting. Go ahead and make this a book.
I
So
received that.
yeah, so then this time next year, you could be like, turn to page 13.
That's
Now you better dedicate some of that. You need to make me put now. This is what Black people do. So Black people give you an idea, then they make it us. So it ain't gonna be just your book. It's gonna be our book. And then now I'm about to tell you how to write it. So now I'm about to say in the dedication, you just say, shout out to Kina Reed.
Look, for any, I actually received that at it. I actually received that. No, like wholeheartedly, I received that, and so I am going to actually end with 2. And so the first one is giving community. I feel like it's relevant to the space we created today.
Listen, I need you to see in the comments. I need you to see this affirmation. We need the book. We are pre-ordering.
I can't see that. I've been like trying to pin, but then it was distracting my presence. I haven't been able to see the daggone comments.
All right. I just told you that we didn't manifest it. You got 3 right now. So I said the book is this time next year we're gonna go page 13. Janice said we need the book. Rosie at Behind Office said we are pre-ordering. It is done. Ashe. But now I'm gonna ask for like now. Look, this is my internal whiteness because I'm like 10% or nah. Like minus me or nah. Like, it's all right. It's all right. We gonna get it. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna let you do it. Benediction.
Okay, cool. So the first one I'm gonna read is more like an unlearning card. My worth and legitimacy are not dictated by white institutions. My allegiance is and will always be to my community, the Black community, even when I am working within the context of white systems. As it relates to just like community. I strive to unapologetically build community with other Black folks at work and beyond. I reject notions that would suggest Black spaces are taboo or insignificant. In fact, they are necessary to my ability to thrive.
Thank you so much, sis. Thank you for honoring us. Thank you for blessing the space. Thank you for being who you are all the time, every day. And I'm so excited. We manifested the book tonight. We got some people delivered tonight. I'm about to work on. You think I'm lying? I'm literally gonna print out pictures. Like make them a circle, like a circle space. And then I'm gonna just go ahead and put it on a little, card stock paper. My board.
Ooh.
Don't give me an idea and don't say
I ain't gonna. Yes. That's a nice journey work assignment from this. That's some good journey work.
I got 3. Harriet, Ida, and Malcolm. So, Armida. We need to start calling her Armida. That's the thing. That's the name her mama gave her, huh? Was it? Yeah, wasn't it? I'll look it up.
This is so yes. I'm appreciative of being invited. This felt like bomb.
How can I not invite you?
I really felt like I got invited over. Like,
yes. Tell the people how to find you. Where do you want to be found? Do you want to be found? Because that's the thing too. Like some of us just be like, look, I don't want no beef. I don't want no static. But if you want people to find you, where can they find you at?
I'm trying to. I don't even want to say get better. I'm trying to, and you gifted me with this. Figure out what visibility looks like, and
which came from Janice. You gotta track the genius.
It's like who is also like significant in our origin story. Janice, I don't know if you're still out there. I appreciate you. And so I've been trying to figure out like what I want visibility to look like, feel like. I am on Instagram, Brittany Janay _ Liberated Love Notes. I even created a page for my consulting firm in loving.
Okay.
In
Y'all
love.
can invoice this. Y'all can invoice her.
And am also on my website, either BrittanyJanae.com or in lovingaccountability.com. Liberated Love Notes, yes. I know you have, for the white folks who joined, I invite you to show up in that space as financiers of Liberated Love Notes that I can give freely to Black people who desire them. And so there's room for you in that way. And there's actually a page on my site for Black people who, for real, don't want to have to buy one. Every time I get one donated, I'm able to just send them out. So there's like a form at the bottom of the page where Black people could be like, oh, I want one, can't really purchase one, whatever. And so, but then there's also ways in which people who have access to funds can show up and purchase one for themselves, meaning like Black people who want to purchase one themselves and donate another. And so
every time I've bought a deck, at this point, I think I've bought a deck. So I've received one from a Black woman. I've bought, I think I've bought 3 decks for people of color, Black folks. And it's such an empowering thing. I wanted to say that. I mean, yes, we love for white people to do micro reparations, and buying decks to give to Black people is important. But the very act of making that investment in another Black person, again, we have to embody the things. I don't, and I've said this a lot, affirming other Black people, it's not some like self-help, trendy, Like, it is a practice that I've had to embody as I unlearn and eliminate anti-Blackness in my own life. So the very act of saying, I'm not going to have 6 Starbucks this week, but I am going to buy a deck of cards for another Black person, is me investing in other Black people.
Mm.
So I cannot recommend that enough, that Black people buy this for other Black people as an act of solidarity, and honestly a communion effort too,
Yes, those
Girl,
are the
we
ways.
ain't gonna never get off this call. In a
We're
minute
not.
now, we gonna play Church
It's
Girl.
literally giving Black church vibes. It's literally giving Black church vibes.
I'm one step away from playing Church Girl by Beyonce and say, let's work this thing on out.
Look.
Listen, go into your night with good rest. Go into the rest of the week empowered. We are so grateful for you. Y'all catch the replay. Tell your friends, because this is a whole word. Nice, sis.